Burgess here with Music Marketing TV. Today we're going to be taking this bass sound and we're going to be bringing in a reverb layering technique that involves the Pro-L 2 to get this sound. This is being done via a send and just this plugin stack right here. The reverb into a limiter, into an EQ, into another limiter for sidechaining, and we get that sound. If we go ahead and put it all together. So that's what we're going to be looking at here. This is an episode of Unnatural Limiting, where we take a look at some of the strange ways you can apply the Pro-L 2 in your productions. So first, let's start off at the very beginning. I have a bass sound, and this bass sound is going to two places. Let's just break this down piece by piece. So the bass first goes to this bus, and this bus goes to the master. So this is just the direct sound, nothing fancy. That's what it sounds like. So that's just our input. If you must know, this is a Harmer patch, and it's not that complicated of a patch, but that's just our bass sound input. Then we have another send over to a verb send that I could send any channel to. It just so happens I've sort of optimized this for the bass sound in this case. And so that's coming out here. I'm going to go ahead and turn this one off, which is the direct sound. So now we are only getting the verb send, and it sounds like this. So let's take it from the top, turn everything off, and look at what's going on. So our first visit is the Pro R2. Yeah. So first, before we take a look further at this, let's introduce the second element, which is the L2. This is going to turn it up dramatically, and we're going to take advantage of some of the clipping techniques we looked at earlier in order to adjust the tone of the verb, and this can really make it feel more like a layer than a lead. And now we're going to talk about some of the key elements we're doing here, but with this added, we have this sound. It can be driven a lot harder, and if you're going to drive it harder, there's a few considerations you are going to want to check out with the Pro 2, namely taking a look at the look ahead, possibly. So for example, if we take this bass and send more of it in here, yeah, you can get a very distorted tone, or you can tame it back. So this is basically, we're just ramming the reverb into the roof of the limiter, essentially. Take it back, get a more subdued tone. If you do go harder, you can always use look ahead to try and tame it. And we talk about this specific idea in the Reverb as a Clipper, the Unnatural Limiting episode number 3, I believe, where we talk about using the Pro 2 as a clipper. But I don't want to get ahead of myself too much here. Let's talk about the Pro R2 real quick. There are a few important moves that make this sound work as well as it does. The first one is the reverb time is extremely short. If you're ever going to use reverb as a layer, unless there's like a reverb, then you're going to want a really, really short time. So I have it as low as it can go, and then I've taken the percentage decay rate down as well. And then in here, I've also taken the decay profile per frequency and dipped it in a number of spots. And this just helps keep a tighter curve. I've taken off the low end a smidge here in the post EQ and boosted the highs. And like, these moves are important for the tonality. So if we listen to this, if we were to get rid of this, that's what we'd have. Start at the beginning. See, it just completely lacks high end now. And so that's why these moves are here. And this is because I'm seeing this less as a verb per se, more as a layer. Now in here, the other sort of really important move is the brightness is at negative 100%. If we bring this up, it's quite a bit brighter. Yeah. So it's an option, though, for automation, changing it throughout the track, getting some variation out of this. It can also be very interesting to move the space control. An interesting way to change up the layers. The width is also a somewhat important parameter. It's usually lower. And I really liked the larger than life image that you can get out of it. And there's a few changes over here with distance and thickness, but probably the one that impressed me the most was how apparent the differences are between modern, vintage, and plate. It is astonishing. Here's vintage. Yeah. And then here is plate. Now they sound kind of weird by themselves, but when you add in the direct sound, it can work. There's vintage. And then the default modern. But if some cool options, maybe duplicate the chain and use different ones at different moments and automate different things. But those are some of the big things that are important towards getting towards the sound. I do have the thickness changed to negative 100%. If we go the other way, it's not the hugest of differences, so I don't consider this an all that important move. And then character has been driven up. This was actually reduced for me. I had it up much higher, and character in this sort of a context just didn't really work out. So I went ahead and took it back. And yeah, so that's how I settled on these settings though. So that's what's going on with the Pro R2. And then we're feeding this into the Pro L2. It is to pull the verb up and add grit. That's the two jobs. So in the other episode, the previous one of Unnatural Limiting, we talked about the setting relationships between look ahead, attack, and release. And I am leveraging that here with the most aggressive setting I can get, which is the look ahead at 0 and the attack at as high as it can go. And what I mean by high, I mean like as long as it can go. It's 10 seconds long, which essentially makes the release just not important at all. And so now we have what amounts to be a clipper. But something I didn't talk about in that video, that episode, is how it only clips when you're driving it like really hard. So even though we've got a huge gain makeup, the level of the input is going to matter a ton. I mean, this should go without saying, which is why I didn't mention it before. But since we're using it as a send, we can choose dynamically how much we want to put in here. So I can automate this over time. Maybe I want a really aggressive layer. Maybe I want the layer to grow over time. Like we start low. You know, you could do something like that where you automate it up slowly over time. So I settled on this level, but that is essentially the job here. I went with the transparent option, which I tend to like for the clipping. I just like how it sounds. So that's what I settled here. But that more or less is the settings for the Pro L2 and the ideas behind it. Just another application of the way we could use it for tone shaping, essentially, and it doubles as a way to bring the volume up. Here, I'm not super concerned with gain at all because I am going to be adjusting my send level to it, and I can always just bring the send down, which is what I've opted to do here. This is why this level is so low. I do have the transients set to 100% linking. I don't have a technical reason for this. It will possibly affect your stereo image, so you can be careful with that. Following the L2, we have the Pro Q4. So the Pro Q4, if we go ahead and really quick bypass it, I'll bypass it in the plugin so you can see when it's on and off. It sounds like this, which has some low-end stuff going on here, and I just wanted to tame some of this and add some interesting resonances. And so that's how I amounted to this like little bump and this roll off. And here's the before and the after. It is astonishing to me. I would say it almost sounds warmer, even though I'm taking off some of the low end. Definitely cleaner. And finally, so that's just a tiny like tone shaping move. Finally, we go to the fruity limiter. This guy is just taking in the kick and doing sidechain. And I'm really comfortable at setting up sidechain very quickly with this. And I can get the pumping I usually want very quickly. So that's why I defaulted to just sort of the standard one. Now, these last two moves are sort of cleanup moves, but the sidechaining in particular is like really, really important. So I have everything on with the kick going, and this is what it sounds like, final result. If we let the reverb run on top, and obviously it sounds like really bad because the kick just completely gets buried now. So with all these moves put together, we wind up with this final result. Again, here was our before and our after. So let me know down in the comments if this is something you've done, or if you do it, I'd be interested to hear what you make. Subscribe and hit that bell icon for future videos, and have a blessed day.